Hey everybody, I just recently got into Desynced, and one of the things that I found while I was jumping into the game is that this is not really like most other real-time strategy games that I've played, and it's also not exactly like any of the automation games that I've ever played. And so it has a learning curve, which, like a lot of these kinds of games, is kind of steep, but the other part is that because it involves programming, it also is a situation where there's a number of people who don't know the kinds of things that programmers would take for granted when they play the game, and it turns them off to the game a lot. And so, what I was hoping is I could start a Let's Play about the game that kind of shows how you can go about doing these things and hopefully makes it seem like the interesting game it is and less like, you're trying to scale the Hoover Dam with toothpicks. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to kind of go over what the different parts of the user interface are. And so we have inventory here. It's just basically like inventory. So every one of your units has these kinds of things in it. And the inventory is just like inventory in a role-playing game, right? It's the stuff you're just carrying around. The other thing you have here is your equipment, right? And in this game, all of your equipment is done through components. That's what the equipment is called. There's a few different kinds. So here we have an integrated component. These you get whenever you build this unit. They're just built into the unit. And this one has two of them. It has a high-grade capacitor, which is going to store a bunch of energy. And over here it has a deployment module, which is going to allow us to turn it into a base. And we're going to do that really quickly. It also comes with two medium sockets, and the medium sockets can fit medium and small components, right? There's also large sockets, but we're not going to have units with those for a little while. And you also have integrated components, internal components. And the internal components are things that they're not going to render inside the unit, and they provide it usually a boost, or they give it some kind of power, some kind of minor power in the game. Whereas like the medium ones are used for like things like construction, defense. Like this laser right here is a small advanced turret, and if we were to put it up here, it would start zapping anything that came nearby that was aggressive. The fabricator is the thing that allows us to build stuff, right? So that should be fairly straightforward. The next piece is up here above not only the components, but also above this info block. And these are registers. And this is one of the first places where you see the automation part of the game happen. I don't want to get too far into it right now, but I do want to show just a little bit of what's going on with this. And so what happens is you can connect these various things together, right? I can take the power production. This is called a register, right? I can take the power production register here, and I can connect it to this register, which is the visual register. And then you can see that it's displaying this power information on the unit. Even when I don't have the unit selected, I can see, that value which is coming out of it, right? So that's an interesting kind of thing that we can get. You can also set these registers, right? So if I just wanted to set it to, say, metal ore, with an arbitrary value, I could do that, and it's just going to display that specific thing. And the other part is that there are integrated behaviors, and I'm not going to get into that right now, but within an integrated behavior, you also can set the values of these registers. This is the basic part of the programming for the game, right? Before we get into behaviors, you can do quite a bit just using these. The other thing that you have access to here is this info block. And we're not going to get too far into it, but you can change the name. So we're going to call this guy home base, right? And you also have the health of the unit, and you have the power that the unit has stored. Now, not all units have the ability to store power. All of the ones that we have right now do, because they all have these integrated high-grade capacitors in them. But not all of them have this. When a unit doesn't have it, it needs to stay within this blue area here, or it's going to get pretty slow. So that's that. And then you have a few controls here, which we're going to get into when they're relevant. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to deploy our base, right? And I'm just going to stick this base down basically right where this unit is. And it's going to start constructing, right? And once it's done doing that, we now have a power grid that goes, it's a little further, I think, than it is on the unit when it's a mobile unit. And we also gain access to these runners, which is nice because these runners, they don't have any real equipment in them. What they do is they're like little trucks being able to carry things around. So now that we have that, next thing we're going to want to do is we want to get some resources. So we're going to take our engineers. We're just going to have one do the metal ore and one do this crystal chunk over here. And they're going to start gathering stuff. And while that's going, I also want to build a storage block to fit the resources into. So we'll put one of those storage blocks here. And we'll put one of these storage blocks here. And that's going to use, there was some material, metal bars inside of this drop pod. So I went and I picked up that and just dropped it off into these storage blocks, into the construction sites. Now, that's another thing that happens because we're within this coverage here. All of the places where you see these like Wi-Fi symbol looking things, that's your, what's it called? That's called a logistics network, right? And if you mouse over this, it'll highlight the logistics network that the unit is covered within. And so within the logistics network, things will be automatically delivered, right? As soon as they're requested, they'll be needed. And these, when you do construction, it'll automatically do that. Now, not everything is going to be delivered, however. This engineer, for example, just filled itself totally up with metal ore, and we have the same thing happening here. So what we want to do at this point is we want to use a different register, the store register. And when we do that, we drag it out onto a thing on the map, and the unit is going to drop its inventory off at the place where the storage is. We're going to do the same thing. This guy will now drop this off. Now, I do want to go and talk about this piece here for a moment, because what we have here is a laser mining tool, right? And this is just a component just like anything else. I could take this and I could stick it on the scout if I wanted to, and then the scout would be doing the mining instead of my engineer. I could put it on the home base if the home base was close enough to do the mining, and then the home base would be doing that, right? The other thing is that and this is how all of the components work. There's not one thing that's static in this game, as far as I've been able to tell, when it comes to these slots here, right? But the other part that I want to point out is that the thing that it's mining is actually inside of this register here, right? So if I were to switch this to doing metal ore, then, oh look, it's going to do metal ore instead, right? And that's going to show up. So I just wanted to show that off a little bit. Stuff. I don't want to have the thing that's doing my crystal mining having metal inside of it. But you can see that that it's going to go off and it's going to be mining it's mining the thing that's inside of the register. And the place where that matters is what I could do is set a different register, like this signal register over here, to be the thing that determines what it does, right? And then from here, I could say I'll do crystal chunks and do as many of them as you can, and it'll do the same thing, right? Just this visual programming language continuing to get more complicated. And the main reason I want to clear... I don't know why I can't clear the register. Well, I'll just do it from over here. I'll just set this to go. Oh my. Oh, I have to click on this register to clear it. Okay. So, what you put here and how you connect these things together matters a great deal. And there's a lot of flexibility with how you link these things together, right? One of the things that's kind of interesting is that these storage blocks, they have a go-to register that they don't move, right? So go-to won't make any sense within the context of this kind of, within this unit. So you could just kind of use it as a way of stashing information, if that's how you want to go. Okay, so now we filled up the storage block, and now this engineer is not doing anything anymore. And there's other equipment that we have inside of this drop pod. So let's grab this stuff and put it inside the scout. And I don't really want the fabricator inside the scout. Just drop the fabricator off over here. I don't want it in there either. The inventory. Okay. Now, one of the things that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to process this and turn it into materials, right? So what I'm going to do, this deployer here deploys a metal bar production building. So we're just going to do that. And I guess it kind of makes sense to have it on the edge here of our production line. Let's put it here. Because if we put it right there, then we can build out this way for our production chains. And now you'll see is that when this is producing, this is going to be taking that metal ore, and it's going to be moving the metal bars into that, right? And the other part is we really want more than one of these. So let's create a second one. Now you can see that all of the units are putting that stuff in there. Awesome. One other thing that we're going to want is the storage block. We're going to want to hold all of the metal bars, right? So we'll do that too. And as this produces metal bars, it'll at first turn that into storage block stuff. And at a certain point, storage block will be full. Let's move this guy back while we wait for this to be constructed. All right, so there is one other thing. You'll note that like this engineer moved over here and is now feeding directly into the metal bar production. And this engineer, when we needed the crystals for this, moved all the way over here as well in order to provide that. And we don't really want that, right? We don't want these guys moving around. So this is where we're going to get into this logistics network piece. If we go into this drop down here, I can turn off deliver items, and I can turn off supply items, and I can turn off conserve construction. And when I do that, now the only thing that this unit will do is mine and drop stuff off over here. It won't participate in distributing it. That's good, because I have runners, and the runners are the thing that I want doing the distribution, not the units that are doing mining. So I'll do that, and this guy to continue mining. So we'll continue mining there, and okay. Now you can see these units are moving back and forth, and they are goods in. Now, there is another thing I want to note here, which is that I can store stuff like this, right? But if somehow we end up with more material on this building than we need, then it's going to move over here. Right? Now this is in this metal ore has ended up in our inventory, and it's clogging up a spot. And we don't really want that, right? So what we want to do, I know you. Okay. So in order to stop that, what we can do is we can lock slots. So if I click here and I lock all slots to an item, and I choose metal bar, now the only thing this is going to store is metal bars. And if this ends up with more material in it, that material will stay put. It won't move forward, right? I'm also going to move this to here to make sure that that is contributing to metal bar storage. Okay, now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to start producing, like, even more materials for to be able to, like, really amp this up, right? And if I go over here, one of the things I need is metal plates, right? But what I'm doing is I'm tasking each one of these assemblers to produce a specific thing, and I want to continue doing that, right? I don't want to build out. I don't want to build much further beyond this, because then I'll be having to go in and being like, oh, I have a thing here and I need like an assembler, boom, right? Or a fabricator, right? I don't want to have to continually jump into this menus. In fact, it's one of the things that people find in the Steam comments. They've been like, oh, this is a real problem, right? I have to fiddle around with all of this stuff. And so there's two things that are pretty important. The first one is that I want to have a building that makes assemblers, right? Because I have enough resources for it. And so just having a building to do that will be really important. And then the other thing is I want to also make sure that the buildings that I'm making are reusable, right? And so, there's blueprints in this game, just like there are in most of these kinds of games. They're unlocked from the very beginning, and they're really powerful. So before we get into that, I first want to show like how to build a building if you're doing it by hand. So the first thing is, let's say I want to make a building that makes assemblers, right? So I'll put the building down. Okay, now I'm making that building, and I'm going to wait for the building to be constructed, and I'm deliberately doing this the slow way. But okay, now we're finished. Oh, now it's finally done. Okay, now I can take the fabricator and I can drag the fabricator over. Okay, now I can click in the building and I can say, okay, I want this building to make fabricators, right? And this works. It's fine. But it is really, like, fiddly, right? One of the things is that I just said I wanted a fabricator and I just clicked it and boom, right? But the other part is that as soon as it's done making this fabricator, it's done, right? Watch. Oh, it's finished making fabricators. There's no more fabricators. Now the key is that I want to click over here when I'm doing this, and then I want to say, okay, make me an infinite number of fabricators. Infinite number of fabricators. And that's great, but again, all of these things are just cumbersome, right? They're things that they're kind of irritating. So what I want to do is I want to make a blueprint. And what I can do is when I have a unit selected, I can click Create Item and then Create Blueprint from Current Selection. And boom, now I have my fabricator that's producing fabricators, right? And we're going to call this Fabricator Mark 1. And this is okay, but this, again, it's not great, right? But we do have this blueprint parameter section. And this is where things start to get interesting, because I can say something like fabricate this. And now, instead of saying, hey, I want this to make fabricators, I can instead say, well, fabricate this, right? And when I build the item, I go to build, and I go to library, and then fabricator mark 1. I can then select metal plates, select infinite number, boom, okay. And then I'm going to put my metal plates, I will put them here. That seems fine. And now it's going to go and create all of this for me, right? It's just going to get all the parts, it's going to deliver all the things, it'll build the building, and it'll build a whole bunch of stuff, right? But there is one other part. Every time I go in here, I'm having to set this value, and, like I do this, and let's say that I actually don't want scout radars, but let's say I wanted to do foundation plates, right? But then I also have to remember to set infinity over here. Well, I don't actually have to do that, because inside the blueprint parameter, I can set a default value. And here's the really cool part. The default value I'm setting, I don't have to set the kind. All that I need to do is set the number. And when I do that, and then I go to build it, the number will show up, and I can just select the thing I want an infinite number of. And boom, now I can have an infinite amount of foundation. I'll put that. All right. This might be a silly place to build a foundation plant, but whatever. It's not going to hurt anything. All right, so now I now have these things, right? Really quite boring in a sense, but it gets the point across, right? And the last part is we actually do want one more thing. We want to be able to have fabricators. So I'll build that, but I'm not going to put that over here where we're building raw materials. I'm going to move that up. Let's see. I'll just put it over here. And this is a kind of a long way to go for the material, but that's not that big. It'll present a bottleneck later, but that'll be fun because then we'll be able to, you know, fix the bottleneck. All right, so we have our production chain going here. This thing is now producing fabricators, which is nice. And you can see that these fabricators are using our metal plates. And, you know, the other thing is I don't really like where this is located anymore. So I'm just going to deconstruct that. Now I'm going to move. What we'll do is we'll just move this equipment here. Put this here just to make sure it's distributed nicely. That over there. All right. So, and then once again, I can just very quickly go. Everything's hooked up. Everything's nice and happy. Boom. And boom. Now I have, again, my fabricator that can make fabricators, right? Now, the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want an assembler. And this time, instead of going through making the building and stuff, I'm just going to make the blueprint immediately, right? And we're going to call this, we're creating a new blueprint. We're going to start this. Now, we need a medium building this time because these buildings, the fabricators, are medium modules. So if I go over here and we take a look at the fabricator, it's a medium component. So we need a medium slot to put it. So I go over here, I select the medium building, I select my fabricator, I put my blueprint parameter in. It's called an assembler. So I'll say assemble this default value of infinity. Boom. Stick that key right there. And we're done. Call it. This is an assembler. Mark 1. Awesome. And then, once again, same deal. I can go like this. I can grab my circuit boards. Say OK. And we're going to put the circuit board processing on this side. I want to kind of have it facing me. Put it there. And once again, I want the storage block to be configured. But, you know, there's another thing that's going on here. Like, with these storage blocks, we have this thing where we really want to make sure that all of the slots are locked to an item. And just like we're doing with this one, and we actually didn't do it with this one, but we should be doing it with this one as well, right? So once again, this is a situation where we can create a blueprint for this. Item, blueprint, storage. Storage mark 1. And now this time, go to blueprint printer, add parameter, store this, default value. And then, awesome. So we got the same thing going, but now we're going to go like this. Right click on the tile, lock all slots to an item, select store this, and boom, now we have it. Everything is going to be stored for us automatically. We don't need to worry about it. We go to storage block, stick down storage block, which just want to kind of line it up. Seems about right. There we go. And then we're going to take the storage register and we're going to move it here. Because when this is finished being built, you're going to see all of those slots are locked. And once again, that means that everything's just going to work. Or for some reason, it won't have worked because I didn't use my blueprint. Silly me. Oh well. Even so, if I had used my blueprint, you'd see that this is all done. And what we can do actually is we can show. I'll show it off this way. We'll take a storage block. We'll say this time we want fabricators, and I don't want to build my stuff going this way, so we'll put the storage block right next to it as well. And then if we take a look at this one, we should see, because I built it using the blueprint, boom, all of that's already done. Now, there is one other part. Because I built this using a blueprint, it's actually not showing me the visual, right? When I put this one together, it stuck a circuit board in the visual register, and as a result, it's showing me how many items are actually being stored there. And the same thing's true of the storage block and the fabricator, right? This storage block over here doesn't have it, but that's pretty easy to fix. Boom. Type infinite, because that way it shows a number that it fills in. And now I can see how many items are there too. But like this one doesn't have that, so I can go into my, just real quick, just go in and fix that, right? Put the key there, and we're done. Now, the other part, though, is that for this, you know, I'm always having to drag this storage thing over. And, you know, that's fine for something where I want a ton of them, right? But I don't necessarily want a ton of these fabricators. I'm only going to be building like maybe 2 or 3 of these things at a time, maybe. And even if it's more than that, I don't mind that it takes time to assemble them, right? So what can I do instead? Well, I can go to the request item piece, and then what I can do is I can say, create a recurring request and say fabricator, and then say the number that I want, right? So in this case, I only ever want 4 on hand at once. So I'll do that. And because it's recurring, it will now fill this up to 4. And it'll fill it up from everywhere. That's the other thing that's pretty cool. And then this will stop once it's filled up its inventory full of things. Because I have it in, like, my Fabricator Mark 1s, they always go, right? They're always going to fill up their local inventory, and this is excess, right? But the thing is that, you know, I can still store more than that in there. And so it has room to expand, but at the same time, like, I'm going to have only a little bit working at any given point in time. What's going on with this? This is missing crystal chunks. Oh, it's because my engineer stopped mining. All right, so now that he's mining again, I don't know why he stopped in the first place, but whatever, it's fine. Now that that's happening, we can also just take these things down. Move these over here, too. I'll be scaling in just a moment, so that'll be fine. Now, that's actually another part. This is using metal plates, and our fabricator that makes fabricators is using metal plates. We could run out of those real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale this out by building some copies. And the way that I'm doing that is you highlight the building, you push C in order to copy, and then this is the important part. You take your cursor and you put it somewhere where there is nothing, and you push V, and it'll spawn the blueprint under your cursor, and then you can just plop it down a little bit. And when you do that, it's going to copy all of the registers. When this is done being built, you can see all the registers are exactly the same as they already were. So this is just going to just scale. Right, and it looks like they took things from this fabricator. So again, I want to make it so that these things. I guess there isn't really a way that I can not have it work that way. Oh well, that's fine. It took from here when I scaled up instead of taking from my storage. But that's really not that big of a deal. All right, so we've gone through. We've seen how to do blueprints. We've seen how to get our initial supply chains moving. right? And we've gone through locked inventories and we've seen orders, right? And this is kind of like your basic stuff, but some of it wasn't entirely clear to me, at least when I was starting. And it took a little while to figure out the discovery of it. So in particular, the number one thing I struggled with is this request piece. Somehow I managed to completely miss that I could do a recurring order, and that led me down a rabbit hole. Before we end, however, there is one other thing that I want to do. I want to turn this into a thing that can produce units for me, and I want to show off the programming just a little bit more. So we're going to go and we're going to request a single assembler, right? And it's going to go and pull the assembler off there, and it's going to put it in this building for us instead of us doing the dragging and dropping, right? Finding where it is and moving it over manually and stuff. But the other part is that this robot factory here is the thing that produces units for us, right? And over time, it's going to get fairly complicated. So we're going to need parts for it, right? So what I want to do is I want to drag the missing ingredient down here into this one. And instead of having the visual unit connected to what the assembler is building, I want the visual unit connected to what the robot factory is building. So that way, I could do something like go over here to the worker and say, make me miner. Miner Mark 1, of course. And I want this one to be building, getting more metal ore, because I want to scale that up too. And I do want it in the connection into the logistics network, but I don't want it to deliver, I don't want it to supply, and I don't want it to serve construction. So I can go in here and I can get all of this done right here. Then, when I click OK, and then I click, let's build 2 of them. What we should be seeing is this is requesting circuit boards, which it's going to pull from here. And I did the wrong laser mining tool, didn't I? This is one of the things that is a little weird. You have to make sure you get the right one. So the laser mining tool is an upgrade. The miner is the one that we want. And we want this resource to be this. And we want the storage to be that. Okay. Call this miner 1. And we want it in the logistics network. But we do not want it to do construction or anything like that. I think that's right. Awesome. So we go like this, and then I said 2. We want 2 of those. And so now what it should do, yeah, there we go. Now it doesn't have the miner. And so the assembler is going to make the miner. And once it has it, then it unlocks the ability to make the miner Mark 1. And when we do that, we will see the miner Mark 1 pop out. And that miner automatically knows what it's supposed to be doing, and it goes off and it starts doing it. Awesome, right? This thing's already doing its thing. It's all set up for us. And the other part is we can create a blueprint from that as well. Oops. Create item from selection. And then once again, we can set up this parameter, right? So we want it to mine this, set it to infinite, and then we're going to set this over here. And we actually don't want it to do that storage. We do want to make sure that we do this, so we store here. And this one, we don't have a particular thing that we know we want, so we're not going to set anything up for that one. But we are going to put it here, store here. And I think that's it. I think that is our miner Mark 1. So there we go. We've got that all set up. Oh, and then there's one other thing that I want to do. So I want to get this, I want to do one more assembler. And I want to assemble these uplinks right here. Because in the next video, we're going to want to do science. And if we have the uplink already built, then it'll be pretty easy for us. Just pick up right where we left off. We'll put that one right next door. That'll be fine. And once again, we can see that all of the parts are going to be moved over, and it's great, right? We might also, for fun, we'll scale up our runners at the same time. They'll get that moved. There we go. Is this producing circuit boards? Oh, it's requesting circuit boards. There we go. And now it's building. Now it's building that unit there. So that's it. Thank you for joining me and all that. And we'll pick this up next time. Later.